Hello everyone. So today is Sunday and this will be the Sunday's last video for tonight. It's Sunday, September 20th, 2020. So in this video, I will take you through a little deeper for the Muskrat Falls inquiry. And to do so, I will take you through the one of the exhibits out of many. This is a presentation made by Professor Ben Flipzerg to the Commission, I believe in 2018. You may ask the question, why did I choose to pick this particular presentation and to do a deep dive of what happened? Then because the reason is very simple. I've read a book by Professor Ben Flipzerg last year. I think I have it here somewhere. Yep, here we go. This is the book, the Oxford Handbook of Mega Project Management by Professor Ben Flipzerg. And because of that name recognition, I said, hey, you know what, this is, I know, I heard that name. Oh yeah, this is the book. And because of that reason, I thought that that would be the interesting one to start. And I really enjoyed not only the book, this one, but I really found the presentation that Professor Flipzerg made about the project insightful. And my purpose of this video is only for education, understanding, and discussion through YouTube. Hopefully you can also share your perspective and your take on the project, on some of the issues and some of the perspective that Professor Flipzerg brings up, so that we can all learn from each other and be better at what we do. So let's get started. Let's go inside P-00006, the presentation for the Commission of Inquiry respecting the Muskrat Falls project by Professor Ben Flipzerg. Okay, so it's already open here, as you can see. Again, this is a 41-page slide deck. I will not take you through the front end. You may go through that at your leisure. You can see the address, the website address is publicly available. It's nothing hidden or unavailable. So everything is available at your fingertips. But I think I'll share my perspective. So here is one example. The Niagara Tunnel project explains cost overrun and delay. So basically the project, as you can see, one of the, I think the picture, I guess, 62% cost overrun, 42 months delay, and OPG cited the cause of the overrun and delay as you can read through. You don't need me to read that through. And at the end of the day, I think the message is that this explanation is not correct, because these may be causes, they're not necessarily root causes. So what's next? So let's go to the next page. I love it. Root cause of risk. Your biggest risk is yourself. I like this picture. What's your thinking? What do you think? Okay, so if we go to the next slide, it says causes and root causes. So for causes, as he's pointing out, is that the scope changes. Like, for example, think about this. When you are in a project, if there is a cost increase or a schedule increase, what do you see? More often than not, I hear, oh, because there are some scope changes, the complexity was more than what we have expected. There's delay, there's inflation, maybe because of the international pricing, because your equipment may be coming from some other country. You may also have foreign exchange, geology, weather. We never expected that type of bad weather, bad data, models, etc. However, what the professor is pointing out is that none of them are actually causes. They are like this weed, the symptom of the problem above the surface. That is obvious. People can actually see it. On the other hand, what is not obvious is the underlying causes. And from the perspective that he's bringing in lies in optimism bias, strategic misrepresentation. So what does that mean? So let's take you through that. So root cause is internal, not external. I also find it very insightful that conventional wisdom, sees causes of risk as mainly external to program. So you're doing a project, and because of external issues, you got impacted, and that's how we. In many project in programs, you may see or hear people are explaining what happened to their project, why the project did not do what it was expected to do. But however, in his perspective, the root cause of the risk is internal. So how so? So three types of explanation in his point. From his point, one is technical, which is like errors in data and models. One is psychological. I love this. Number two is optimism bias. If you haven't read Professor Kahneman's book on thinking fast and slow, go and read that, or at least listen to it on or listen to the audio on Audible. Really, really insightful. So anyway, political, economic, which is strategic, misrepresentation. The technical explanation is the two most common reasons for poor forecast, and this forecast, as far as I'm taking it, is forecast in terms of cost as well as forecast in terms of schedule, are the use of unreliable or outdated data and the use of inappropriate forecasting models. Basically what happened is that you may be part of a project, or you may be part of a corporation that has long history of doing projects. That's very good. That means that you have a mature project management organization for the most part. However, that does not guarantee, or that does not tell you that your data, tools, models that your company or corporation uses is solid. More often than not, you will find lots of situations where you will find out that there is either undated data or they are not using the model in the most appropriate way. So long story short, the way I see it is that biases do not cancel out. So when you bring biases, especially during the project development, or i.e. in the front end of a project, you will notice that people main goal, or majority of the time, if people really believes that this project needs to go through, or people really emotionally connected with it, they will do almost anything in order to overstate the benefit and almost always understate the risk, and as a result, biases compound. Again, you can go through this. He's trying to explain the definition. So let's go to the definition of optimism bias. I really enjoyed this one. Optimism bias is the demonstrated systematic tendency for people to be overly optimistic about the outcome of a planned action. This includes overestimating the likelihood of positive events and underestimating the likelihood of negative events. This may happen because, let's say, your development team is working on a project and their performance, as I mentioned in another video of mine, is measured through how many projects they have pushed through the gate. Then they may be really interested to push the project through the gate without thinking the outcome of the project. There are few ways you can avoid that. If you see my other video on this very project that on the overview of the inquiry, then you will be able to hear what my thinking as to how you can avoid optimism bias. But obviously, let's hear what or listen or understand Professor Flipzerk's perspective. How optimism bias influences managers' decision. So managers underestimate cost. And when I think here, when he's referring to what he's referring to as managers, is that the project team under that manager obviously underestimate cost, completion times, and risk of planned decisions. Manager overestimate the benefits of the same decision. So now on the front end, you have underestimation, and at the back end, you have overestimation of the benefit that you will achieve from your project. So there is a planning fallacy, right? Your plan is flawed. So here is another way of looking at it, is that you have an inside view, like this lady is looking through this binocular or telescope, focusing on the constituents of the specific planned action, seeing this action as unique. And many times when we have a project, you may hear this uniqueness bias as well, that the people call that their project is very unique and very different from the other projects that the organization or maybe the industry is undertaking. On the other hand, the cure, according to the professor, is the outside view. You have to focus on the outcomes of similar actions that have already been completed. The way I understood that, or at least I interpreted that, is that, for example, you are doing a project A, similar project most likely have been completed somewhere else. There may be data, information available about that project. If that is the case, it is important to understand what happened with that project, the outcome, not necessarily the constituents, what really actually happened, and learn from that project. For example, in this situation, we, you and me, we are all trying to go through this package so that we can understand the perspective brought in by these the experts, as well as what really happened and what we can learn and apply in our project. Anyway, strategic misrepresentation. So strategic misrepresentation is a planned, systematic distortion or misstatement of fact, lying in response to incentives in the budget process. Think about that, as I was mentioning, that if your team's performance is measured, how many projects they have pushed through, then they will push through projects. On the other hand, you need to find a way that that people are not incentivized to, well, to distort facts. If you read through the report, the Muskrat Falls report, inquiry report, you will find amazing information as to how they went through independent project review, they went through gates, they brought in risk folks from outside. They did so many things, and you may find, if you are only looking at from the inside, that boy, this project is so solid, but it was not, as you can see from its outcome. Anyway, this is one of my favorite slides, is that the root causes in sum. So basically it's the optimism bias, and you have political bias. So if your organization, as I was saying, if your organization is so so much in the belief that this project must happen, there's merit to this project, then you are not, or your organization is not necessarily critically evaluating the merit of the project. What you will end up with is political bias, because you want to push this project through. And then you will bring in optimism bias, basically, as you have just seen, underestimation and overestimation of certain elements, which will take you to a situation that is not necessarily fun at the very end of the day. So again, I think as part of the recommendations, what he's trying to point out is that the viability of the and risk assessment. So root cause, you were taking an inside view, which leads to an optimistic estimate and plan, because you think what you have done or developed is really so good that it can only, for example, you may have risk mitigation plans without properly understanding or having that in-depth experience about such risks from the field. That will give you an inside view, optimistic view, and it may become very painful at the end of the day. So what the recommendation is, take the outside view, go and consult with people who have done something similar and learn from it. Pool and apply lessons from other projects, exactly what we are trying to do in this video. And avoid uniqueness bias. Don't try to sell your project or sell your agenda that it is unique. Viability and risk assessment. So page number 2, root cause. Ignoring the full distributional information of outcomes leads to optimism. This is interesting, huh? Look at this thing. So what he's saying is that recommendation is that the consider different risk appetites for different questions when appraising a project proposal. So for example, if you are a decision maker, you are the gatekeeper. Is the project economically viable? If you want to answer that question, you should not be looking at P50. What this recommendation tells you to do is the best measure is the mean or median of estimate. Is the project affordable? Best measure is an extreme downside scenario that you may end up with a P90 cost, and if you end up with that cost, what will happen to your bottom line? So if you take a P90 measure, that will tell you whether you can actually afford that project. It's like buying a car. You just don't go and buy a car and then suddenly you lose a job. What happens? You need to weigh in the pros and cons of taking a loan or investing money that is depreciating. In this case, similar concept is applicable. We need to be little conservative or little taking a critical, little pessimistic view as to if things go really wrong, where will we end up? And that will tell you whether the project is affordable. What project budget and timeline should be set? Very important, very interesting. So if you see this graph over here, it's like the P30, P50, and P80. So conservative estimate allocated to portfolio level and held by the owner of the program. So let's say that's P80. Most likely estimate allocated to projects based on project portfolio management approach. So most likely the project manager, as a project manager, you will have that, and the contractor most likely will end up with that. Now, if you are a contractor, now you know your client what they may end up having. Again, they may not end up having this much of money. For example, in this situation, the project management team did not have, again, the money as it's shown on this slide. So number 3, projects planned with the inside view and without the full distributional information leads to optimism. So what the Professor Philip is recommending is to use what is known as a reference class forecasting, which is a 3-step process. Basically, you identify a sample of past similar projects, you establish the risk of the variable in question based on these projects, and you adjust the current estimates of the recommendation. So basically what he's trying to say here is that in all types of projects and in all geographies, it's not necessarily in Europe or in Africa or in Australia or in Canada or in US. Basically, he has looked at projects all over the world. Project cost and schedules are frequently and systematically underestimated. That is the most important insight at the end of the day for the project was overrun. It's not necessarily the project budget was overrun. Most likely scenario is that your cost estimate was underestimate. The root causes of these underestimations can be found in optimism and political bias, as we just have seen. Improve viability and risk assessments. So make sure, and that's why you apply risk, like what could go wrong, and as you plan your project, and you debias project upfront. So during the front end and during project delivery as well as during execution. Plan projects with an outside view. Get outside opinion. Full distribution and information. Use the full distribution and information in planning, cost, and schedule. Set targets according to risk appetites, because if you set very aggressive target, you know that, but you can set very aggressive target, but you have to inform your stakeholders and decision makers that I am setting a very aggressive target. By the way, there's the chances for me hitting that target is this, and that means that I may come back for more money, more time, and so on. Because at the end of the day, money and time both are in limited supply. Your organization may only have, let's say for this year, let's assume a big number, $100 billion, but even with $100 billion, they may have lots of projects that they need to invest in. If you come in with a project and that project looks very good on paper on the front end, but suddenly when the project actually goes through, during execution, it comes out with lots of problems. So now you have to have more money, more time. That may not be possible for the organization. What it does, it drags down the organization to a for lack of better term, in a rabbit hole, because now you are not serving your organization's best purpose. I think as a project manager, we can all serve the best purpose by providing more predictable outcome, and more predictable outcome will require full distributional information of any project. And as you have seen, reference class forecasting, if you are not familiar with it, go and read some material online, and if you think that you have a different perspective than what is shown in this presentation, then let's please comment, because so that we can all learn from each other. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this review. And I will make other videos in the coming days focusing on this project, including the gate decision support package for this project, which will also show you how they decide what are some of the constituents of a decision support package, what are some of the deliverables, how they decided whether the project is ready to go. Again, if you from a documentation perspective, from the effort perspective, if you see the project, you may think that man, this is a very solid project, but as you have seen, the outcome was not necessarily very solid because of some of the biases that was part of the project. And you can also see that IPA, even, which is a very well-known organization, also did a review of their deliverables to provide feedback. And it also has the gate process that the organization followed, and how it all played into into the decision making for the project. Anyway, have a good Sunday, everybody. See you next time.